Welcome to Behind the Recipe. I'm your host, Christina Hitchcock. Join me every week as we dive into the joys of cooking, explore kitchen tips and tricks, and share delicious recipes that will inspire your next meal. So, whether you're a seasoned cook or just learning your way around the stove, there's something here for everyone. Today, we're talking with my friend Alison Corey from Keeping the Peas, all about how to incorporate different diets into your family's meal plans. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Now, before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Um, I started keeping the peas back in 2019 when I went from being vegetarian to vegan and was finding it challenging to incorporate meals into my family that not only I wanted to eat, but that my picky kids and my husband would also eat. And so I started my blog, Keeping the Peas, as a way of sharing the recipes that I was making for my family that all of us were enjoying.
I love the play on words too. It's like keep the Peas.
Yes, yes.
The vegetable, it seems like that nobody likes. I know nobody in my house. I like them, but my husband or my son
Yeah,
doesn't like
I love peas.
them. I do too. That's fantastic. And I mean, incorporating different um dietary, what do I want to say? Like preferences into a family meal plan can be challenging.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
think whether or not it's a vegetarian, whether it's plant-based or vegan or even gluten-free, when
Hmm.
someone in the household makes a change, that doesn't always translate to everybody in the household making that change. And so, if you're the cook in the family trying to figure out how to make a meal that everyone can eat or will eat and be happy about it is challenging for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the time where it's like my mom made dinner and you ate what was on the table or you didn't eat. I mean,
Right.
that's the way it was. There was no, making different things for different people, etc. But I mean that's showing my age too because a lot of things have changed and evolved since then and now there are so many more medical dietary restrictions and things like that to take into consideration.
Yes, yes.
So, what are some of your best tips for really making a a diet or a meal plan that incorporates everyone's dietary preferences?
Well, one of the things I find is that the easiest thing to do is when you're meal prepping and you have, your starch, whether that's for me, I usually go with something like quinoa or brown rice, something or barley or whatever it might be. And then you have your roasted vegetables, and then you have a variety of different proteins that you can then add. So then you can put all those components together to make numerous different types of meals.
Hmm.
And so for me, if I want to eat the tofu or the lentils, I can add that to my meal. But if my husband wants to add chicken, he can add that to his meals. So it's a way of sort of simplifying mealtime, and everybody gets a little of something that they want. That's one of my best tips.
That's a great suggestion. And I mean, that's great for really, I mean, like even picky eaters,
Yeah.
just making that base that everyone can enjoy and then you can customize the
Yeah.
other parts.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think really helps is making different kinds of sauces or toppings that you can add.
Mm.
So when you have like a tahini dressing that you can add, or you have a Thai peanut dressing, or just a variety of different sauces can also really change up the flavor of the meal,
Hmm.
so that it's not always tasting the same, and gives a little excitement to it.
Yeah. So I imagine if you're just going to be getting started in doing this, I don't know, my organizer planner brain kicks in. And I think if I was incorporating this kind of planning into my diet, I would want to just sit and do some research and find that those base recipes that you can make. Do you have any great suggestions for that?
So I have a few. I mean, I like I love different recipes from various different cultures. So I love doing burrito bowls one
Mm,
night, or you can make a burrito bowl, tacos. It could be all one sort of different type of thing, but with the same base. I also really enjoy making like stir fries. So starting off with some veggies, and you can add so many different types of protein to those stir fries, and you can add a teriyaki sauce or a peanut dressing or something like that. So, you know, my biggest tip is to stock your pantry, because once you have
mm.
those base things in your pantry, it's just a pull and go type of thing. So I have a variety of different types of grains. So, like brown rice, white rice, quinoa, bulgur, oats. Then I have a lot of different types of pastas too, because those can be great ways to start a meal. And
Right.
yeah, and then in your freezer, having a variety of different frozen veggies that you can quickly add. That's one of my favorite things to do, just because so many times our veggies get bought and just sit in our refrigerator. We forget
Yep.
about it when they're frozen. It's really an easy go to that you can
Yep.
add to your meals, and they're going to still be fresh.
I am that person. I am guilty of opening up that crisper drawer and like the broccoli has little fuzzy layer on it
Yep.
because I've forgotten about it.
Right, right. It just gets hidden back there. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
always have to put things like right in front of my face to
Hmm.
remember to use it, or
Yeah.
else it gets easily forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess if you're going to start doing this, like meal planning would be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Actually sitting down and mapping things out, you know, early on in the week or on the weekend to get yourself ready for the upcoming week.
Yes, yes. And one of the things I like to do when I'm making my plan is, so it doesn't feel boring,
Hmm.
is I sort of have a theme for each day of the
Ah.
week. And so, like Mondays might be our sandwich, burrito, something that's like in a wrap, something really simple like that.
Hmm.
And then Tuesdays could be our like pasta day, where we make something with pasta. Then Wednesdays are bowl day, and Thursdays can be like a sheet pan day, and Fridays are usually leftover days
Hmm.
or takeout day.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps to map that out when you have a theme for the day.
Yeah, I know that definitely helps me. Like just meal planning in general, just making sure that I'm using up everything that I have. And you brought up a great point that I think a lot of people overlook when it comes to meal planning is incorporating those leftovers. And it
Hmm.
doesn't just have to be like reheated whatever you had on Tuesday.
Yes.
You could
Right.
morph it into something completely different, like turn it into a taco or a
Yeah.
slider or something else.
Right, right. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
With leftovers, I don't know about you, but for my family, they don't like to eat leftovers, so I have to kind of get a little creative with
Hmm.
whatever's left over and present it in a new way.
Yes, I'm like that. I am like that. I'm the one that does not like leftovers, like to just, put a plate of stuff that looked like what we had on Tuesday into the microwave and reheat it. That is not me. Now, my husband and son will eat whatever, whenever. The
Yeah.
leftovers are always fair game, sometimes for breakfast even, but I need to be tricked into eating them.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm the opposite. I could eat the same thing every day, but my family, no way.
yeah, yeah. My one of my favorite ways to morph a leftover is to make a panini out of it. I think a panini makes
Yeah.
everything better.
Oh yeah. Got crispy bread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit of cheese,
Yeah.
whatever. It's all good.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So do you have any other tips for families that are looking to do this?
I think one of the things that's, when it's challenging when someone's making a dietary change and the rest of the family has to kind of go along with it, is to bring some recipe suggestions to the family and say,
Mm,
what are you excited to try? Or what looks good to use? Whether
yeah.
that's going through a cookbook and looking at the pictures and seeing what kind of sparks their interest, but giving them some choice,
Right.
and getting them a little bit more interested and excited about trying something that might not be exactly what they've been used to,
Hmm.
but they might find like, oh, that looks amazing. I want to give that a try. And when they have that choice and you present it to them, they're definitely going to be more interested in giving
Yeah.
it a go.
Yeah, I know when my son was in Boy Scouts, they're required to do the cooking merit badge. And part of that is they have to plan and cook and clean up, most importantly, an entire meal for the family. And the home cook in me had a very hard time relinquishing all that control. But I basically sat my son down. I think he was like 10 or 11, maybe 12 at the time, somewhere in there. And I sat him down and I put him on Pinterest and I'm like, find what excites you. And
Yeah.
then, we can talk about how to make that. And he loved that. He loved being able to plan it all from start to finish and pick out just purely what excited him and looked good to him.
Yes, yes. One of the things I love doing with my kids, I have two boys, and we go to the library because you might not think that the library has an abundance of cookbooks, but they do.
Yeah.
And so we will just sit down and I'll just let them choose any kind of the cookbooks that they're like they
Mhm.
sparks their interest, and they love looking at the pictures. And then we pick a few to bring home,
Right.
and they choose a few things to try. So that's that's a fun way to look at new recipes. Or
Yeah.
um, and another way that I've helped since my kids were really little is I love going to farmers markets and bringing
Mm,
them with me. And I would give them like a little allowance of what they could use at the farmers market. But there were rules. You can't
yeah.
just get a loaf of bread. Like try to pick a vegetable, fruit, anything that looks good to you. This
Yeah.
is your allowance. You can use it. And then we bring those things home, and we've had the opportunity to try things that otherwise you might not find in your grocery store, but
Right.
the farmers market is
I
there, especially summer. I mean, that's the best
Oh,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that idea. We used to do that in the grocery store too. Like if we saw a fruit or vegetable that we just didn't know what it was, like let's just buy one and try it. Like I
Yeah.
learned to like jicama that way and dragon fruit, star fruit, like just different things that you wouldn't normally try. I mean, it's not that expensive. Just grab one and give it a whirl.
And I would say too, if you live in an area where you have grocery stores, whether it's like an Indian grocery store or an
Mm.
Asian grocery store, check those out because back where we used to live, we had this amazing market, and there were so many different fruits and vegetables that you just don't see in your average grocery store.
Right.
And bringing my kids there, they were like, "What is this so cool?" Like, and I don't know everything about them, but I'm like, "Yeah, let's get it. Let's figure out how we can use this." And
Yeah.
it's a fun way to get kids involved in cooking and trying new.
Yeah. And I think even just allowing them to help you prepare the meal is a great way to get them to try new things. Like my guys might be reluctant to try tofu, but if they actually prepared the meal and took part in it, I think my son would be much more open to giving it a try,
Yeah.
once there's some ownership in it.
Yeah, and I mean, I found when my kids were really little, my oldest, he loved tofu, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden he didn't like it for a little while, and then I started preparing it a little bit different, where I fried it and I put like this sticky teriyaki sauce on
Yeah,
it. And now he will always eat it. Like he'll eat it if I make it a certain way. So I
yeah,
think sometimes you might say, "Oh, my kids don't like tofu," but maybe they don't like that bland, cut up,
right.
flavorless tofu. But fry it up with some sauce and give it a
Yeah.
try again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I even find that with vegetables. Like, my son is obsessed with Brussels sprouts. The kid will eat them any way you make them. But when we got started, he loved them with garlic and balsamic vinegar. So if I could make him Brussels sprouts with balsamic and garlic, he would devour them. And then that just led to him trying it in different ways. But you're absolutely right in sometimes it's just the preparation or the sauces that you use. So, that's a
Yeah.
great tip right there. Like learn to make different sauces to
Yes.
elevate your meals. It goes a
Right.
long way.
And I think for a lot of kids, texture is a big
Mm.
thing. So if you present it to them in a way where they didn't like the texture before, try preparing it another way. And I never want to push things on them. So, because then they're going to be resistant, like, oh, you don't like
Right.
carrots, try this, you know. But if you present it and no, don't make it such a big deal,
Hmm.
then they might, I don't know, be more inclined to try it when you present it in a new way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I do, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I do try to trick my family. If I know it's something I think they're gonna like,
Yeah.
sometimes, many times it works. There have been a few colossal backfires on my
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
Um, just trying to get them to expand their palates
Hmm.
a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't always recommend tricking,
Yes.
not telling them what
Yes.
the ingredient is, but I'm not gonna lie, I've done it.
And I think too, sometimes when you like label a recipe, whether you're like a certain dietary preference where you say
Right.
this is vegan spaghetti and meatballs, just saying
Hmm.
the word vegan, people might say, oh, no, not for me. But if
Right.
you just say, oh, we're having spaghetti and chickpea balls, I mean, I don't know, they might still not be into it, but just without that sort of special label, then
Right.
they're going into it without like this preconceived notion of, I'm not going to like this.
Right, because many times we do go into that. Like
Yeah.
before we eat, I mean, you're using all your senses and you're looking at it, you're thinking about it, you're seeing it. So
Hmm.
if you go in with that preconceived notion that, ew, I'm not going to go for this,
Right.
you
Right.
won't even give it a fair shot.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Do you have any other tips and suggestions for us?
I would say when it comes to making meals, like go with things that your family has already likes. So,
Hmm.
like for example, if they are pasta fans, prepare things, prepare different types of pasta dishes. Like I have a vegan vodka sauce that I make,
Hmm.
and you know, if like I said, don't label it vegan. Just say, oh, it's pasta with vodka sauce, and
Right.
see, so present them with things that you know they already like, um, just in a new way. And they, you don't even like you said, you don't have to tell them that
Right.
it's different, but they, if they go into it with like, oh, I already like this type of pasta, so I'm going to give it
Hmm.
a try, you might realize that they're not going to have any resistance to it. So
Yeah.
finding those familiar favorite recipes that they like my family loves chili, so I make that at least a couple times a month and never have
Yeah.
complaints. Or stir fry veggies and mixing our bowls together, burritos,
Hmm.
things like that. So all, going in with things that they're familiar with and that that they're going to like,
Yeah.
just with a little different spin on it.
That's a great tip. And I would think one thing I need to do, because I'm notorious for trying new things like that and we'll love them, but then it's like out of sight, out of mind, right? Like if
Right.
I don't remember that I made it, or my family doesn't remember that I made it, so I'll never make it again. But I've learned to start writing down, like I keep a list of family favorites. And
Mm-hmm.
then I try to like categorize it, like which ones are quick and which ones, are more for a Sunday where I have more time to
Yeah.
cook. But that's been super helpful for me in just remembering some of these different things that we've tried, and that we like them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Keeping notes on those types of things, because most of the time, the things that I make on repeat, I make because my family tells me, they're like,
Hmm.
oh, when are you going to make your blah, blah, blah again? We haven't had that in a
Yeah.
while. And, like I kind of don't remember all the time, but yeah,
Yeah.
they continue to remind me,
I feel
especially
like,
my youngest one. He's always like, oh, I really want you to make, what he loves my tofu. So I really want you to make that this week. Okay, definitely.
yeah, when they ask for it, I mean,
Yeah,
that's a given. That'll
yeah,
always go on the meal plan. If my son says, I want, I'm like, it's done. We're gonna put it on there for the week.
yeah.
But I had this meal planning book. It was like a nice spiral bound meal planner. And I loved it because you could like rip off half the sheet was like the shopping list. This was before everything went technological.
Right,
Um,
right.
but what I really liked and what I found super helpful is that because it was spiral bound, I could go back to previous weeks and see what we had. So when I found myself getting in a rut or bored with what we were making or just trying to be inspired, I would go back through some of the old ones. I'm like, oh, I forgot I made that. We loved that. And
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it
and it's
makes
a
it,
Yeah, it's a great way when, I mean, I'm still one of those people who loves the journal and the paper and
Yeah.
pencil and writing things down and going, yeah, being able to flip back and look and see like,
Hmm.
oh, I made that, a couple months ago. It's time to bring it back into the rotation again.
Right. Yeah. Because let's face it, my brain is old and I don't remember anything anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we're trying to keep track of in
Yeah.
our daily lives that, yes, remembering those things are not
Yeah.
the easiest.
No, this is great. So we've talked about like stocking up your pantry, planning things out, getting kids involved, incorporating flavors and textures that they love. Are there any last tips that you want to share with the listeners?
But I was just gonna say that when it comes to like making new meals and trying to incorporate one meal for the family that meets a certain dietary preference, is that you don't have to always go for perfection when it comes to those things. Try introducing things a little bit at a time, and when you try something one way and we flavor it and they don't love it, introducing it in a new way. I think
Hmm.
maybe I mentioned that before, but I can't remember.
No, but I think that's a great tip. It's like don't give up on it right out
Yes,
of the gate. Give like you
right.
really have to give it a chance. And I think we talked about that with my son and Brussels sprouts. Like if I made them, just plain with salt and pepper and just, roasted them, he may not have liked it, but once I put balsamic and garlic on it, he loved it. Like it's you have to try it different ways and not give up on things. And I
Yes,
find that's true even with myself. Just because I don't like something one way doesn't mean I don't like it at all.
yes, yes. And I think too, when you're starting with new things, especially vegan versions,
Hmm.
like for example, my husband did not love lentils at first, and
Hmm.
when I would make things with lentils, he was just like, "Oh my God, this is just so bleh, boring," right? But lentils are such a staple in vegan cooking that when
Right.
I started making it in different ways, where I made like this Mexican enchilada bake where you could dip chips, and so it became
Mm.
a little bit different. And it was kind of cooked together with all of the spices, so you're still getting the protein. But I think
Right.
that just plain lentils, not loving it, but
Hmm.
in a new way, it can transform an ingredient
Yeah.
that might otherwise be pushed to the side.
Yeah. So play around with seasonings, different seasoning blends and things like that. I mean, that's a huge thing. And I often find, when people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, my food just doesn't taste good. What would you recommend?" And I'm always like, "Do you season your food?"
Yes, yes,
I mean, seriously, just seasoning things with salt and pepper will take it to a different level. And then when you start playing with different herbs and seasonings, it goes even further.
yes. And I think that's even, especially important when you're cooking vegan food, because
Hmm.
you're gonna really need those spices and those flavors,
Right.
and just try new things. And like I adding smoked paprika to something can just
Mm.
really amplify its
Yeah.
flavor. And so, there's just so many different things. And when I'm cooking, I always have like my go-to spices
Yes.
that I always grab when I'm just experimenting, or I just, I'm not really following a specific recipe, but I'm just throwing
Hmm.
things in. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I used to like always had like my go-to spices that I did. And then I started making, and I call it my all-purpose seasoning blend. It's just equal
Oh,
parts salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. So I make a big vat of it and I keep it, like I fill up a little container that's right by my cooktop, and anything that calls for salt and pepper gets that
yes,
instead.
yes,
And it's
yes.
just that little bit of extra flavor that just takes things over the top.
Yes. Oh, I know
Yeah.
garlic powder and onion powder are my go-to. So I love that. Having a little seasoned blend.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. And
that's
it's so
perfect.
easy to make, and like there's no complicated measuring. It's just equal parts. And I like to measure with my heart. I don't
Mhm.
I prefer when I'm cooking to not have to pull out measuring spoons. I just go with what looks good.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
I'm like, "Ooh, I was a little heavy-handed with the pepper there," but
Yep, yep. I've done that with like cayenne where I'm like,
yeah.
oh,
There it
that was
is.
less than it was.
And I found too that I like chili powder. Now, it's not spicy like
Hmm.
cayenne, but it's more smoky. And I
Yes,
think it adds such a nice flavor to things. So just being willing to try different seasoning blends and, even branching out and try like an herbes de Provence or some of the Middle Eastern seasonings
Yeah.
are incredible.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I find that the more I cook, the more I like to try, like you were saying, different ethnic flavors. I love that.
Yeah. One of my favorite places to go was this like little spice shop and just
Mm.
like looking at the wall of spices. Like, I wonder what that would
Oh,
be
I'd be in
like.
heaven. We don't have anything like that here, but we do have once a year in down near Harrisburg, we have a farm show. And I beg to go to that because there is this vendor there every year that it's just all spices and seasonings. And he sells them in these small Ziploc bags. So you could just go and buy like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And
Oh,
like I will
yeah.
literally spend an hour just looking and smelling and stocking
Hmm.
up, and I'll drop more money than I should there, but I can try different things.
Yes, yes. And I think when if you're a cook like me and you bring your kids into those experiences, they
Hmm.
start to become interested too. Because I'll bring my son with me, and it's like his eyes just pop
Yeah.
with excitement of like smelling and trying. So yes, I
Yeah.
think the earlier you introduce them to those things, the more willing they're going to be to try new foods in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. So you
Mhm.
have a book that you just created, a brand new cookbook, like an
Yes.
act, not an ebook, like an actual cookbook. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yes, so it's called Weeknight Vegans, and it is all easy weeknight recipes that you
Mm,
can make for your family. So I like to think of our family as sort of weeknight vegans because my family's not vegan, but I am. And so I took all of the recipes that I know that they love, that they're familiar with and enjoy, and turned it into a cookbook. So they're all easy 30-minute meals that you can make on the weeknights when you're super busy.
hmm.
And there are foods, there are sandwiches, there are bowl recipes, sheet pan meals, one pot recipes. So all really easy to incorporate in your
I
meal.
love that too. And it's not like you have to go like all in and be all vegan all the time. You could just
Yeah,
choose like one day a week that you're going to try to, you know, eat differently. Maybe try a different diet. And in this case, maybe try some vegan meals or, just to change things up for your family. I love that.
yeah, it's great for like if you have a meatless Monday or something,
Hmm.
that kind of a theme. So there's a lot of different options, all choices, all kid approved. So my
I
kids
was
were
just going to ask
involved.
that.
They were involved in the whole process, and so they're all kid approved and husband approved as well. But my husband will eat pretty much anything. So
Yeah. So my husband is our picky eater in our
yeah.
house. Yeah, no, that's great. And so you know that every recipe in there has been tried and tested, and has your seal of approval and your kid's seal of approval. And that's great. That's, that kind of takes the pressure off of trying something new like that because it's going to work out more so than just using like the AI recipes that we're seeing floating around on social media that you have no idea if they're going to work or even taste good.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And one of the things I've done too in the cookbook is put together some really simple meal prep recipes that you can prep at the beginning of the week so that you have those available. And
I love that.
those little easy recipes are incorporated throughout the um, the recipes in the rest of the book.
That's fantastic. So, if our listeners want to know more about your book or actually learn more about you or follow your blog and website, what's the best way for them to find you, Allison?
They can find me on my website, which is keepingthepeas.com. You can find me on Instagram at keepingthepeas. And my cookbook, Weeknight Vegans, is available on Amazon and my Shopify account, which is linked on my website.
Perfect. And I will be sure to include links to all of that in the show notes. So if you want to connect with Allison, you can just head over there and just click right on the link. I'll have links to her book and all that great stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today, Allison. And thank you to my listeners for tuning in to today's episode of Behind the Recipe. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and picked up a few tips or even some recipes to try in your kitchen. And if you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, but most importantly, share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear from you. So send me your questions, your feedback, or any recipe ideas that you have. Just head over to itisakeeper.com/BTR for Behind the Recipe. And until next time, happy cooking. And remember, everything's better when shared in the kitchen.